Welcome to We Have Spoken. This is season 3, episode 2. This is the podcast discussing our favorite Star Wars show, The Mandalorian. In this episode, we'll be discussing chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore, written by Jon Favreau and directed by Rachel Morrison. It aired on March 8th, 2023, exclusively on Disney Plus, and we're recording this on Friday, March 10th. My name is Dennis, and I'll be here to help you navigate your one-eyed spider mecha nightmares on this journey. With me, as always, is my prequel apologist, Ricky.
It's me.
It is you.
We're back.
We're back. We did this. We're doing 2 in a row. It's been. I'm getting warmed up. I really enjoyed the way episode 1 came out, and of this
It's funny how
season.
it works out. I know we were talking about bringing the show back in partial increments, but lo and behold, we're here all season.
Yeah, we're here all season, and this one is actually kind of replaced Dan Excelsior, the Mostly Marvel podcast, which was our regular weekly show. But we might still squeeze in 1 or 2 episodes of that throughout the season. But we are going to hijack the other tradition, which is doing a post show after this one is recorded for our patron fans, our Patreon fans. It's called the Soapbox, and it's basically just an after show where we hang out with our guest and talk about whatever we want. Um, Patrons get exclusive access to chat with us, and they get to watch it, for like the first week or so until I make it eventually live to the public. Anyways, that's just my shameless plug for patreon.com/danexpedia. But we do have a guest this time, as we promised. It's not just me and Ricky for the rest of the season. We're going to have friends come on the show and talk with us to make this a little bit more exciting. So this, our first guest of the season, he is a former co-host of the show I just mentioned earlier, Dan Excelsior, and he's also a big fan of this show. It's Frank.
Hey, hey. Former co-host and former fan of Star Wars. It's great to be here. I'm actually a bigger fan of We Have Spoken than I am of Star Wars at this current moment. But
That's cool. Hey, I'll take it. I'll take that win.
I like your guys' points of views on everything. So it's pretty great to be on the show. It's kind of funny. Like I'm trying to fight the feeling of being starstruck. Because, but I mean I've joked with you chuckleheads on Den Excelsior, so like I should be at ease, but like it's just kind of weird, man. Coming back from the Comic Con, like I looked Jamie Kennedy in the eye, like after taking a picture with him,
Oh
and then
yeah,
I
you went
like
to the Seattle Comic Con?
yeah, the
Yeah,
Emerald City Comic Con is what
Emerald
it's
City
called.
Comic Con.
And
Yes.
I looked him straight in the eye after taking photo ops with him, Nev Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, and Matthew Lillard.
Yeah.
And when the moment I locked eyes with Jamie Kennedy, I skipped, I like giggled and hopped and skipped away. Like, and I was all like, I don't know what the hell just came over. Like I was telling Sarah about this for a while, and she's all like, yeah, I
You're
don't know
just
what the fuck.
starstruck.
Yeah, it was just super weird. So
Yeah.
I'm fighting the urge to hop and skip right now.
That's
Oh,
awesome. Well, I do remember, for season 2 when Ricky and I decided to do this with guests, and I just thought, like being the big Star Wars fan you were in 2020,
Yeah, yeah,
that this would be something you would want to do. And it took convincing. Remember, you didn't want to do it.
it's true.
You were like, I'd rather just be a fan of the show. And
yeah.
I was like, "But
A
I
little
think it'd be
hesitant.
really good." And so it was that episode that you did with us that convinced me that if we did another show, I was like, "Ricky, we should have Frank. We should have Frank because like the whether or not you are starstruck, you still you come off well, like you
Okay,
come
okay, I
off.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well, you didn't see me with Jamie Kennedy, to be fair, so
that's fair. But
Well,
Jamie Kennedy is way cooler, right? No.
he is pretty cool. He's pretty damn
He's
cool. He's funny. He's funny at least.
yeah,
fair
he's pretty good
enough.
at Son of the Mask.
Oh my
Wait,
gosh.
wait. Oh, you're being serious? Shit.
He
I'm
is.
serious.
He is. And that's why he is our prequel apologist, right? And that's why we do this show is because like you were saying, Frank, you like the different points of view that we have. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the whole point of this show is to bring together people who have differing opinions of something but can all agree that we love to talk about Star Wars,
Yes.
whether or not we actually enjoy specific things about it. It's fun to talk about Star Wars.
And we all enjoy different,
Yeah.
even if we don't enjoy it all, or if you know, whatever level of enjoyment we have, there's different things that we all like that maybe the other one doesn't.
In the time since we last had you on this show, how have you enjoyed the Star Wars that has been out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, exactly. Tell us about how your relationship with Star Wars is now, or how it's changed.
It's been a steady decline, I'll tell you, and it's I just feel like I think it started off with like a bit of Star Wars fatigue. Like I needed the Star Wars blue pill to get it back up again, to watch the Mandalorian. But yeah, I just there
You were
was just
feeling
so
that way before season 2.
before
Okay.
no, you know what? Just after Book of Boba Fett, actually, it started going
I
Star Wars
think you were
flat.
still down to clown on season 2 because
Yeah.
you did the show with us, and you seemed pretty happy about it too.
Yeah, and season 2 was cool, even though like it had that dubious kind of ending that I think we've talked about several times since with
Yes,
Luke
great.
Skywalker
but
stealing the
remember, I
agency.
didn't like that ending either.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was cool with the ending just because I like the idea of seeing like a young Luke kick ass, you know. But I agreed with you that he took away from the people who we were invested in all season
Yes.
kicking ass in that episode.
Yeah.
And I think they could have done both. They could have had their cake and eaten it too, but you know, well, for whatever reason they chose not to. But then like we got Book of
Money.
Boba
They
Fett.
chose money.
They chose the money, yeah.
Mhm.
I do have that Lego set of Luke kicking ass, so
There you go.
um
It worked.
Yeah.
but what I was gonna say was the Book of Boba Fett was just really, really blah. And then from there, I just got tired. Like I know you guys rep Andor, and I saw the last episode you guys did of We Have Spoken, where you guys are repping Andor, and I'm like, you guys make me want to watch Andor, but I know it's a slow burn, so it's gonna take me a while to really get invested in it.
The
But
cool thing about it is they're only doing the 2 seasons, right? It's
Yeah.
like a limited series.
It's 2 and you're
yeah, that's what you
done.
said. It wasn't sustainable
So it's
because we know his fate. Is what you
right.
said.
And so it's a 24 episode show, but the first season is the 12 episodes.
Yeah.
Which 12 episodes is a lot, by the way. It's pretty cool.
By today's standards,
It's
that's
the
a lot. It's
Star
usually
Wars
18.
you can watch with the wife, I think,
Yeah.
because it's very much not a Star Wars show.
And
Yeah.
there's brown people.
And there's a lot of brown Star Wars people.
It's a lot of brown people, and that's
You know,
pretty
to be
cool.
fair, Boba Fett had brown people, and that didn't improve the quality of that show.
No, but that's because Robert Rodriguez directed it.
Did he direct it
That's
the whole
true.
way through? I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Most. I think he did
Most
most
of the
of
way.
it.
Oh
He did all
man,
of it.
Robert Rodriguez
He was at least in charge of all the worst episodes.
was because he
I
usually
don't think he did the ones. I don't think he did the
Okay.
cool Mando episodes. You know what I mean? Like
I don't
Yeah,
think he
yeah,
did the Mando
okay.
episodes.
no, I don't think he
Did
did.
you wait? We're missing one. Obi-Wan. You didn't watch Obi-Wan either.
No, he
I did watch
he-
Obi-Wan. I
he
did
did
watch
watch it.
Obi-Wan.
Okay.
It started cool though, right? Obi-Wan started cool.
Obi-Wan had so much potential, but then
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I guess fan service happened, or like weird edits happened, or something. But I like certain aspects of it. Like I really picked and choose what I liked, and I think we argued about the whole gate thing. Like why didn't he just go
Yes.
around the
Yeah,
gate?
we did.
If he was gonna walk anyway, why didn't he just go around the gate?
Yeah.
And then we talked about how fast little baby Leia can run, and like she's actually so
That's
okay.
because she has the Force, by the way.
Let me go back. So I told you that I had that photo op with the actors from Scream.
Yeah.
My wife and I are currently, this is what we're nerding out on right now. We're currently trying to get every actor from Scream to sign the Scream poster we have. So far we have the 4: Nev Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, and Jamie Kennedy. Those are the 4 major ones.
What about Courtney Cox?
So we need Courtney Cox and David Arquette. We recognize that that's going to be the hardest one, and we're going to a con in June where Rose McGowan's going to be there. So that'll knock another one off the list. But Rose McGowan's going to be there, but also the actress that played little baby Leia.
Drew Barrymore is going to be a tough one too.
Drew Barrymore is another tough one.
Like if you go to her show, you can get it.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, so that was our thought of just signing on to the Drew Barrymore show in New York, and then hopefully finding Courtney Cox somehow magically. Like maybe we'll go to Central Perk and just hang out. But I wanted to challenge little baby Leia to a foot race when we're at SummerCon and see if she accepts it. I want to see.
Oh, is she going to be there?
Yeah, so she's going to be there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hey, by the way, I forgot one more formality that we got to get out of the way before
Oh
we
yeah.
can get the rest of the show rolling.
So, brought to
Uh,
you by Blue Chew.
no, no, no,
We're
no.
brought to you by NordVPN. If you
If we're
like
ever
your,
if
oh
we're
sorry,
ever sponsored, it'll just interrupt us. Don't worry about that.
all right, fair enough.
I'm not cool enough to just like start having scripts sent to me from commercials to do that. No, what I was going to say is there was one last introduction to do. As always, we have our fabulous producer, Lindsay, bringing balance to the force behind the scenes. She is currently wrangling the dogs. I heard them just briefly just now, but I have some more soundproofing going on in here. But she is trying to keep the peace with those dogs so that we can do this show. So thank you always. She's always giving us notes and stuff. There. Now that's out of the way. If you want, we can
We can go
keep
back into the
chatting
foot
about.
race with little baby
Yeah,
Leia.
we can go back into the foot race with Baby Leda, or we can start talking about the thing that we came here to talk about.
Yeah, let's do that.
Foot
I
race,
don't want to
foot
derail
race.
the I don't want to derail the conversation. I do want the foot race. Don't get me wrong, but let's get in the conversation and then
Yeah, let's
we can
talk some
bullshit in the
Mando.
soapbox.
All right, cool. Well, let's do a little non-spoiler talk. Before we get into the spoilers, I'm just going to give you the elevator pitch for this episode. And for anyone who hasn't watched it, you know, here's what I
I
came up with.
before you get into your pitch, I'm gonna let you talk. I'm doing like Kanye. I'm gonna let you talk, but no, I want to say that I really liked your pitch last episode. Like it was super concise. That was the most concise that I've ever seen you do a pitch, but it
Oh
hit
man,
all the major
I had
points.
notes on it.
Did you really?
Uh, no, we're talking about the pitch, the one sentence pitch.
Oh
Just
yeah,
the one sentence pitch. He did that really
Yes.
well. And
All
normally,
right.
like,
okay.
Well, let's see if we can do it for you again.
all right,
So here's the elevator pitch for this episode. This is the one where Mando gets into another jam, this time on Mandalore, and just relies on his greatest gift, his impressive network of Star Wars superheroes.
stop. It is so true. Like I heard someone, and I heard someone talking about how why didn't he just send Grogu to Boba Fett? And I'm all like, have you seen Boba Fett? Like I wouldn't send anything to Boba Fett. I wouldn't send a
Yeah.
FedEx package to
I
Boba
mean, he's
Fett.
still like a crime lord, right? Like
I don't know if I'd
Yes,
call him
he is a
that.
crime lord. But I mean,
Daimao,
well,
right?
he calls himself one. Whatever. Yeah.
He identifies as a crime lord. That's fine.
Do you approve of that elevator pitch as well?
That was great, man.
All
Killing him.
right. Cool. That's the short and sweet of it. Now I think for anybody who still hasn't watched the show, I'm gonna have to give you the spoiler warning.
Why are you here?
No, because they love us. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't
You
shame
watch the
him.
show.
I think Frank started watching a few minutes of our show before he had watched the episodes of
Crazy.
It's true. It's
Mandalorian.
true. I just
See?
wanted to see the
I'm
intro
here
of
to
it.
please, not tease.
Okay, we're not going to shame them.
We're
If they
not down
want
to
to show up,
clown.
all we're going to do is give a polite warning that from here on out, we're about to spoil the episode that we just watched this week. So kindly stop playing this if you don't want that ruined for yourself, or continue watching. Either way. All right, we're going to get into spoilers, and then I'm going to let these guys talk a bunch about what they liked and disliked and all that stuff. So for anyone who needs a refresher of what occurred, here's a quick recap. It's not as quick as the elevator pitch, and this is
Yep.
where Ricky gets salty. All right, here we go. First up, Din visits his mechanic pal Pelimato for a tune-up and a droid to help scout out the ruins of Mandalore. She sells him the famously inept R5D4, who never fails to fail, resulting in Din having to do it his damn self. After getting captured by a one-eyed monster piloting a spider mech, Mando sends Grogu to help or to get help before he's drained of his fluids. Bo-Katan saves the day twice. The second time being when Mando nearly drowns bathing in the sacred living waters. And just as she's pulling him up, the last thing we see before the episode ends, we catch a glimpse of what can only be the legendary mythosaur, whose skull serves as the signet of the Mandalorian people. And is the legend also says that when the mythosaur rises again, it will bring about a new age for the Mandalorian people. We're all good?
Oh,
Is
the
that all?
mythosaur.
That's what happened.
That's what happened,
That's what
right?
happened. It's what happened.
Cool. Light side, dark side. You want to get into it, or you want to? Do you have anything to add to the what happened, or any
No,
notes
I think
before?
we could just jump into. Well, I
I
want to say
mean,
that I love Pelly in anything, and like I know
Amy
when we initially
Sedaris is
talked.
freaking awesome in Star
Pally's great.
Wars.
So I watched both episodes back to back. I only wanted to watch one, but I ended up just watching them, powering through both of them, and then I watched your guys' show. I think either the next day or I background watched it when I was playing Deathloop. I think was what I was working on, and Deathloop's great by the way. And your show was pretty cool. It put me in a more optimistic frame of mind when I
Cool.
kind of started making my notes. I still don't like the episodes. I still think it's bad, but I agree with what you said about and I've always said this too. I agree with what you said about fixing a shallow episode with the subsequent episodes in the series. I think it can be like you seemed more you
Optimistic.
yeah, you seem more
Forgiving.
optimistic of kind of forgiving that
Yeah.
that they can fix it, and you seemed more like it was more of a statement, like a statement of fact. When I feel like it's more of a statement of maybe they could fix it. It could be
I
like it could be
Well,
like Lost all over
I
again.
I
mean, that's
think
a glass
I
half
think
full or a glass half empty, right?
the pessimistic side came through this week
Mm,
because I feel honestly like we got two very different episodes in this one episode. We got the
yeah,
conclusion of last week's, and then we got the beginning of season 3.
I
Or
don't.
I guess
I
yeah,
don't
I can
know.
see
I
that.
don't know that we got the conclusion of last week's. I think we got the continuation of the story, is what we got. It's not concluding. It's. Do you think he's done trying to get an IG? They're still going to bring back IG-11. That's still going to happen.
it
They
just
don't
it
like.
felt weird to have that split be there. If
I
the
I
first
didn't.
scene in the next episode's, hey, here's a robot and it's R5, like wink, wink, wink.
So
Yeah,
first off, I believe R5D4 has been there at Pelly's shop in the past.
Yes. Mhm.
It's
he
not a.
was.
It's not a brand new wink, wink, wink. He has been there.
He had that score mark before, but now he didn't have the score mark. So I wasn't positive if he was the same
She
R2
gave him an
unit
oil
from A New
bath
Hope.
before
Oh, was that what happened?
remember
Okay.
when she
No,
sold
no.
him right after
Just clean them up.
she did the transaction. She got rid of the all the dirty
Well,
scuffs
look
and
at
stuff like
them. Well, look at them with their continuity. Look
that.
at them.
Yeah. She said I'll even throw in an oil bath,
Okay,
So
okay.
just to be clear, we are officially talking about our likes and dislikes,
Wait,
and I just proved your dislike wrong, right? No, I'm just kidding.
so no, but so they chose that continuity to follow, but then they forgot about how the armor said, or was it the Favreau Mandalore said that there was only 3 of them left in in Book of Boba Fett. He's all
Well,
like, "There's only 3 of us
there's
left."
there's been a few
It's
years
it's been
between.
a few years. That's what Ricky said in the last episode.
Yeah.
That's what John Favreau said too. Like he said that
Yeah.
Grogu was training with Luke for years, and
Actually,
I'm
I
not
don't know
sure I
if
got
it's
that
been a few
impression.
years since Boba Fett.
Yeah, I don't know, but all I know is it was shocking to me to see that he had more, and we brought that up last week.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
but it's I think the whole point of that scene was to express that there has been a passage of time through
okay,
showing, right? Like they showed, and that was kind of the thing. Honestly, that I had complaints about last episode is that after the first sequence in that introduction, which was amazing at showing versus telling, right? It didn't
yeah,
bother to show me, or it didn't bother to over explain everything in the first scene. It just showed me a lot of cool stuff, right?
yeah,
I actually felt like the reason I loved this episode so much more than last week is because of the ratio of show versus tell, right?
mm,
There was a lot more of me looking at cool stuff and being in awe of like, what is happening? Oh my God, Pelimato is speaking Jawanese right now.
yeah,
Uh, what is that? That's amazing. Then there's Mandalore. Then there's a Mythosaur. There's a freaking spider monster that like straight out of Mad God. Like
mhm.
if you've never seen that movie, that is a trip. Get high or get drunk or whatever before you watch it. It's a really crazy
Well, you have to
movie,
get
but
Shudder, don't you?
It's no, you know,
Oh,
it's,
is
you
it on
can
something else?
yeah, you can watch it on AMC now. AMC has folded,
Oh.
all of Shudder stuff in there. That's
Oh, wow. All
a
of Shudder
tangent.
stuff? Holy smoke.
Yes, all of
Oh,
Shudder
that's
is
cool.
now available along with everything else that AMC has under its brand.
Nice.
Anyways, that's a side note, but Mad God is Phil Tippett's magnum opus. He is famous for working at ILM and doing a lot of the practical effects that have been done in like Jurassic
Yeah.
Park, and I mean pretty much every Steven
He w
Spielberg thing ever.
If
He
you didn't
also
know,
did,
he was the dinosaur supervisor in Jurassic Park. He was the one responsible for them getting out and everything, so
yeah, yeah.
Mad God is his way of apologizing for that mistake
But I
and
believe he
causing all those
also did a
deaths.
lot of creature creations for
Yeah, he did.
The original Star Wars movies, correct?
I'm pretty sure he did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was ILM and everything, like you said.
So the reason I brought that up is because I really did feel like we never got an explanation of what that spider monster was, but we didn't have to, right? We got for everything we got to see, we got to create our own story in our head just from the visuals that we got. And
Yeah,
I thought
you got
that's
this.
very much in brand on brand with Phil Tippett. So I felt like that creature was an homage to all of the things he created, back in the day. It felt like a very Star Wars character. I don't know. Am I wrong? Did you guys agree?
It felt like a extension of Grievous in some way,
Yeah. Like you
and
felt like right, your brain went there, right? Your brain said, "Oh, I know what
the
this thing kind of
yeah,
is. It's kind of like a Grievous, right?"
I
it's a
believe
new
on my
thing but
form,
familiar.
I called him
Yeah.
yoked out Grievous on my form.
Yes,
Yeah.
yoked out
I mean, he
Grievous.
was just a head, technically.
He was just
Uh
like an eyeball,
it's
right?
an
Yeah,
eyeball
and
with
like
And
probably
a
an
brain.
eyeball,
He had
a
a
and a
brain,
brain.
brain.
yeah,
Yeah.
attached, but he was heavily reliant on the use of machinery, right? At multiple levels. So I always
Like,
think it's funny when you have like you pilot a ship and then that ship goes inside a ship. It's like Voltron, right? It's like the lions. Like it's like how many layers, like Russian dolls of mechas do you need?
Yeah.
But yes,
let
I
me. I don't want to sound too salty. I like the Tatooine chunk of this episode on its own, and I
mm,
liked everything else on this episode on its own. I just didn't like them together. I just
but
the melding of the two into one episode just felt weird for me.
I mean, it felt in on brand with the show. Usually the show takes place on more than one location every episode, right? Is him coming from one and going to another. That's most episodes of the Mando, right? Are like that.
Usually it does like a Brave and the Bold though. Like it gives you like one little a couple minute action sequence and then takes you on his proper adventure. This one
Yeah.
didn't quite have the Brave and the Bold. It was more like Ricky said. It was like the end thought of the last episode, and then it kind of went into its own thing
Yeah, like
But doesn't the title actually run right after he
after the
leaves
Brave and the Bold
Tatooine?
section. Yeah, yeah,
After he
yeah.
leaves
yeah,
Tatooine, right?
mhm.
You're right. You're right.
It does. So it
It
does
does.
do that. Like
Yeah.
so that's the cold open, right?
I think there's just more. There's usually more that he does in the cold open rather than wrap up the plot threads of the previous episode
I
at the
mean,
end
Yeah,
of the
the
episode. Yeah,
Mando who's famous for hating droids now has a comedic droid sidekick.
true.
That's and like it's not even just a random comedic droid sidekick. He is a famous character.
Yeah,
This is the droid that Uncle Owen originally buys, right?
yeah, yep.
In the
there's
first Star
a
Wars movie.
great side story if you ever read the book from a certain point of view about R5 and
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of stories about
how
R5.
R2 was like he was in cahoots with R2 on blowing up at that moment
No,
because R2 convinced him of his mission and shit. It's you
R2
should read
Hannibal Lectered him.
the book if you
Yeah.
a lot of fun little tidbits like that.
What book is that called?
It's from a certain. It's called a New Hope from a certain point of view, and there's one for
Hilarious.
Empire. And what it is, it's a retelling of both stories through short stories about side characters. So one's about R5.
Yeah.
There's one about the like whole HR situation at the Death Star when they didn't shoot at the droid ship or
Oh
whatever when
wow.
they made that decision. But a
Mm,
bunch of little side stories that go in order from the main story. So
yeah.
Are they all comedic or was that played as a serious moment
some are
when?
played seriously, some are comedic. The audiobook's fun as hell because you have some really good famous people reading their own little stories.
Nice.
But yeah, but that's the point, and I think that's kind of been like the thing, the running theme of the Mandalorian, right? Is like they bring in like uh they bring in like small elements of different parts of the Star Wars universe
Yeah,
and bring them more forefront, right? Like that Naboo starfighter is now Din Djarin's signature ship, right?
yeah, the N1 starfighter.
And that's really cool. It's really cool that they got to repurpose that thing, like he brought in the dark saber from Star Wars Rebels. Like if that's not your thing, because you
Brought
never
back
watch
Boone to
Rebels,
Eve.
they brought
Yeah,
back
I was
Boonta
gonna bring that up.
Eve,
Yeah, yeah,
like, and that's I thought that was cool because like that's kind of those things you always like, Ricky, is like you're always pointing out is like, you like when they reference the prequels, but like I actually in this case really did like that as well because I thought it was at this point we've seen other movies that are worse than the prequels in certain ways, right? Or we've seen other
Well, it was
stories,
fitting. It was very
TV
fitting for the
shows,
location.
whatever. Yeah, and it was cool to understand that it is a legit holiday, right? It's the pod race, the giant pod race that happens every year, I guess, is what is
yeah.
for 1 week,
Apparently,
but Pelly was scamming some Rhodian out of like to like she had the Jawas strip down his ship and then
yeah,
like bring him back and say, and she's like, "Oh, fine, you're gonna make me work Bunta Eve," like whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, what did you like about that, Ricky, other than just mentioning?
Just again, the visiting Pelly again. I always enjoy her when she's on screen, and it felt very. You get a very lived in Tatooine, right? Like you see the background characters, you see all the
Yeah,
action, and then I don't think that scene overstays its welcome either.
no, for sure. I think
They don't walk around Boonta Eve. They don't do like a quick cut to the canteen and they're like, fix my ship, give me the droid, and I'm out.
you get enough just from what you see, right? Like
Yeah,
you see some racing going on in
you
the
get the
streets. You
fireworks
see
at the
you see
end.
fireworks. Yeah, you see enough to be like, okay, this is an actual tradition that happens on Tatooine. Like we don't really get to like take that in when we see it in episode 1, like the
Boba
Phantom
Fett
Menace,
made some changes, and
because the Phantom Menace is just so like it's a whirlwind, right? You're like, you don't know what you're supposed to take in from every scene that's going on in that movie. What are the important parts? Like there's so much dumb in that movie that it's hard to parse, right? And so like Boonta Eve definitely, like all you think of is, man, that was like a 15-minute pod race. Oh my god, that was so long. But like,
now
I don't know.
this is
I'm
pod
gonna
racing.
disagree with you on that only because I really enjoyed the pod race. Like when I hated everything else about the Phantom Menace, I loved the pod race. I thought that was fun. But like if you go back and kind of watch when they're on Tatooine
no
and
thanks.
like when Jar Jar's eating that frog and
Definitely no.
then
Qui Gon's
Anakin
pretty
is
racist in that
and
whole scene.
and Qui-Gon's pretty racist. But when Anakin's berating Sebulba, like
Yeah.
you get the idea that there's kind of a party going on, and one can argue that it's like some sort of marketplace or whatever. But like you could also say like it's part of the Boonta Eve holiday
Yeah.
that they're building on. So what Pelly's essentially doing is she's Age of Ultraning the old the prequel trilogy,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
she's bringing validation to it, and that's those are the kind of things that I appreciate. But to
Yeah.
Ricky's point, how he said it's a lived-in Tatooine, well, it better damn well be lived in because we've seen Tatooine on like the
More than
last
anything, right?
20 Star Wars things. Like, come on, like
Yeah.
it better be lived in. It better have holidays. It better have
Andor
lore.
doesn't go to
Hey,
Tatooine. Just saying.
yeah, I was just gonna say it. If you're really excited about the fact that you never see Tatooine and Andor,
I, I don't know what I'm excited about anymore. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, do I want to see Tatooine? I feel like it's like Stockholm syndrome at this
hey,
point because
dude,
I've seen it so much.
first 5 minutes of Andor, Star Wars brothel.
Yeah, I know you told me that. That was one of your selling points. And
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds pretty good.
I mean, I don't mean to say like there's naked people running around giving HJs and stuff like that. No, it's just, but it exists. It's a place that exists in that story.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you, he goes there. It's a real place, and I'm like, I knew they had to exist. I knew
So
it. I knew it.
when my friends used to play the tabletop RPG for Star Wars, we had brothels in Coruscant, and they were for the Jedi because they
Because of the vow of
forbid
celibacy.
attachment.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
attachment.
well,
Yeah,
no. There's no
not
vow of
celibacy.
celibacy,
Yes.
but yeah, but they forbid attachments, so we had brothels that are just for Jedi.
If you ever watch Clone Wars, you learn that Obi-Wan actually had a love. He was yeah, he was in love with the Empress Satine on
Yeah,
Mandalore. So
and
he had a very big uh
lightsaber.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he had a big lightsaber. No,
nice.
he had a lot of he had a big story arc is what I meant to say on Mandalore in those cartoons like over the course of years where and those it's actually through Obi-Wan that you get to meet all the characters like Bo-Katan Kryze and
Sure.
Pax Vizsla and all the people that were in Death Watch and everything like that.
Yeah. Well,
So
if you were like me and you wasted your time with the expanded universe growing up, you'd know that people like Mundi had wives and stuff, things like that. So
fair enough.
not any of the Jedi like really. There was never any
Yeah,
celibacy
side pieces.
argument.
Yeah,
So it was pretty weird that Mundi had a wife. Like I feel like that's in direct.
I always thought his name
Um,
was Kiadi Mundi, but
yeah. I
I
was
don't know.
preferred
I don't know
I,
Kiadi
that
Mundi.
it's
I
fine.
guess it doesn't. I guess it doesn't matter because the expanded universe is gone now.
Well, Kiadi Mundi still exists.
We could agree to disagree. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I think we can all agree that we did like uh Pelimato and we did like the Tatooine segment, but there was a whole lot of other episode to talk about and like after Din got R5D4. So or dislike. So why don't we talk about everything that happened on Mandalore or after that?
Let's do
What
it.
do you guys think?
Have you guys ever played Demon Souls or any of the Souls games?
A little bit,
I
Bloodborne?
don't like them, but I played them.
You played them, Dennis?
a little bit.
Okay,
Not enough to go far.
they do a lot of things. They do something interesting in those games, and it's very prevalent in like something like Elden Ring, where there's not very much story, but there's the story in the way it looks, the story in the environment,
The
and
show
I think
versus the tell, right?
the show versus the tell. Yeah, exactly. And I think Mandalore does that a lot. Like there's a lot of like little elements to it where you can kind of where it's not very handholdy in what occurred there or what might have occurred there.
Yeah.
I
It's
know they do mention like bombing from TIE
In
fighters
previous episodes,
in
yeah,
previous
like
episodes.
previous seasons and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
The Great Purge.
the Great Purge, exactly.
Yeah.
But they don't really handhold of what happened or they don't really handhold about the mythosaurs. I think this might have been like one of the first times I heard mythosaurs
Well,
said.
in that episode of Boba Fett, the good one, where we get a whole
Oh
bunch
yeah,
of
that's right.
story, that's where they, the armor has that throwaway line that was in the previously on this episode, which is about
Mhm.
it's rumored that, or it's the legend is that the great mythosaur, when it rises again, will bring in the new age of the Mandalore. Like when she said that back then, I thought she was just referencing old expanded universe crap. For the fun of it, I thought it was a throwaway line. My bad. I should not ever discount anything the armorer says ever. It's
Yeah,
gonna be a plot point at some point
Well,
in the show.
from a writing point of view, to Frank's point, it's written very smart because Mando and Grogu have no memory or attachment to Mandalore.
mhm.
And you
Like
see that in
they
that scene where he's flying there, right? Like
yeah,
he's teaching him about the maps and he's teaching him about like
How to
I've never been
navigate
to
the
that
galaxy.
planet. I've been to that, I came from that one. Yeah.
but
Um,
it allows you just taking everything with them versus
yeah.
having Bo-Katan there. I'm glad we got her bits in the show or in this on Mandalore, but you get to see it for the first time with Mando, and I think that was a really cool
Yeah.
touch.
I had a lot of fun with just him and Grogu because like the funniest part is when they land, right? He's like, "All right, R5, go." And they wait in the cab of the vehicle because they're like, "We don't know. We don't know if it's safe," like because he's heard all these stories. And so like it's really funny because it's just the two of them being little cowards in their safe little cockpit and sending this poor robot out to go fend for itself. But yeah, you get that feeling of newness, right? Like it's all uncharted territory to them, and therefore it is to us the way it's framed, and it's
Yeah.
really cool.
I
Yeah.
like seeing planets that we haven't seen, or just environments in general that we haven't seen before. Like, I don't mind them staying on Tatooine, but why can't we go to like the core of Tatooine, or like Tatooine Castle or something like that. Like some weird place that we've never been to before. But like here's a totally new environment that we've never really seen. Um,
Well, in fairness, I've seen it plenty of times
sure, yeah, because
in
you
Clone
you watch
Wars.
you watch the little kid stuff. No, I'm
I
kidding.
watched it in Clone Wars, and so for me, it was actually extra impactful when they got to that part of the cave where you see the ruins of Mandalore and like how it's like now underneath Earth, right? Like it's
So
underneath.
you saw it all put together, like when it was.
Yeah, and so
Oh,
it was
cool.
really sad for
Hmm.
me when I saw it because it's like, oh wow, that's horrible looking,
That
like that's
sucks.
it's kind of like in Waterworld, when Kevin Costner goes way down and he
Yeah.
sees the cities, like it's like that. It was like,
I've only
that
seen
movie's
the
terrible, by
Universal
the way.
show,
Or like
but
Escape from LA when he's in the underwater rocket ship thing to Disneyland, and you see the shark from Universal Studios come
Yeah,
up.
same point. Yeah. But
Perfect.
for me, that was actually a really cool, like that actually hit me in the feels a little bit because like I'd only ever seen it animated, but a bunch, right? Like in all these great stories with Obi-Wan. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, that really finally hit me, like
Mm,
how crappy it is. But it is cool that like there is an entire set of audience who is experiencing this world for the first time. I can say I'm experiencing it for the first time also because it's never looked like this. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's never looked that way. So same diff. Yeah. Same diff. It just
it's cool. I'm just fucking glad we're not on Tatooine. That's
yeah, I hope you don't go back.
oh, we're going
exactly.
back. They're going back.
Well, I think here's the reality of it. Like, if you like Pelimato, she's clearly somebody who never travels.
Mm.
So you're gonna go to Tatooine at least once every season of The Mandalorian.
Well,
And I think that's the whole point of why this was in there, right? Is just to be like, look, it's gonna happen at least once every time. She even was in the one shot episode of Boba Fett
yeah,
with Mando. Like she's core character. Like that's just we're not getting away from her.
she's a fan favorite, but
Yeah.
I think, but that kind of goes to where it makes it feel like a video game. That's what's one of my major gripes about The Mandalorian is that I think it would make a better video game than a show because he basically does video game stuff. This is like watching a bad Telltale game where you
Ah,
get no choices.
you know what? I think this is like a glass half full, glass half empty kind of thing again. And I'm gonna use it as a moment, like as my nerd moment, because like
Yeah,
I actually I actually have a different take on that, which is still game related.
yeah.
I realized when I was rewatching this show, or actually on the when I was doing my notes for the show, and I kind of alluded to it in that little like elevator pitch that I did earlier, right? Which is uh, his greatest strength, right? Mando's greatest strength is not his ability to do badass stuff. It's actually two things. His greatest strengths are one, he's different from all other Mandalorians so far that we've seen, like at least in the lore of the show. In that, if you remember the first season of the show, when he goes to the covert and we see all these
Mhm.
other Mandalorians who live underground and they kind of don't like him, right? Like they don't like him because he goes out there so often. Like he's the one getting all the jobs, he's the one getting all the
Yeah,
money, but he's also the one that's he's kind of a people person, right? Even as quiet as he is, he's
Yeah.
actually forming a lot of relationships with people out in the real world, which seems to be like my wife loves she's a, I don't know if it's offensive. I mean, I guess they're never going to hear it, but my wife calls the Mandalorians the Amish. She believes they're full on Amish people, right? Like they're the way their whole way of
well,
living is
his
it's very
his
similar.
sect of Mandos, yes, very much
And
is.
and so it's kind of like she was saying, how it's kind of similar. Yes, that's what I mean. When I say the Mandalorians, I mean the ones that we got to meet in this show. Um and obviously bo-katan is proving it's completely different outside of his little "this is the way" people, but there's still something that rings true when he says that to her, right? But yeah, like my wife was all Lindsay was saying how like uh, for the Amish, it's not a normal thing for them to go out of their community and go and talk to people often. Like they do it to do trade and stuff like that, but it's not like, hey, you want to go on an adventure with me kind of thing?
Let's
No,
bounty hunt.
it's not a thing, right? And so if you think about that, like through the context of this show, that's kind of been one of his greatest strengths, right? Is he goes out there and makes friends wherever he goes, right? Like how fast did he make friends with Cara Dune in when he met her? How
Just one
fast,
fight scene, and then they
right?
were buddies. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
fast did he make that one lady on that shrimping planet, right? She wanted to settle down with Mando, right?
Mhm.
Like she just met him like that day, dude. Like it's for whatever reason he has a charm that inspires people to want to fight alongside him and stuff like that.
And not to mention Grief Karga and the dude that who says
Exactly.
the line that you named the show after. I forget that
Yeah,
guy's name.
Queel.
Quinn?
Queel.
Quill?
Quill.
Never rest in
I,
peace. Exactly.
I mean, this will
Exactly.
go to my point of, or one of my highlights is the his faith and the faith
I'm
of the Mandalorians.
I'm
It's money.
I am gonna
It's
cut you off.
go for
Oh,
I'm
it.
not
no.
done. I'm not done. There was 2
Go
parts to my nerd
go
moment,
to the second part.
but I do like that. I do like where you're going with that. Uh, that's one half of his greatest strengths, right? Is his weird ability to get other people like to be bros with him. The other half of it is actually what I like to look at from a gaming perspective, like especially Dungeons and Dragons. Like uh, I I think depending on like how what kind of player you are or how your DM rolls, whatever. When you have like money in that game, sometimes it's a matter of like you don't have to worry about the money because your DM's going to take care of you and make sure that you get the loot you need to keep leveling up, right?
Yeah, it's like Cowboy Bebop or, Firefly or something like that.
Yeah,
The money doesn't really matter.
or sometimes there's one guy who's sitting at the table who is like constantly like, "Hey, so how much money do I have? Can I go to the store? I need to buy stuff, right?" Din Djarin is that guy. Because if you think about it, how many times have we seen Din Djarin go shopping? He shops a lot on this show, and it's actually one of the reasons that he actually survives a lot of situations, right? Remember when he bought the whistling birds
Yeah.
and then immediately used all the whistling birds to like wreck somebody?
Yep. He
Remember
also talked about buying to replenish the whistling birds
Yeah.
too.
exactly,
That was
right?
in
But
season
he
2, I
buys
think.
ammo. He bought the best when he bought the Beskar armor. Everybody was like, "Oh snap! Look at this suit!" Like, and it
That
saved his
still goes
ass.
that goes to my video game point, though, the bad video game point. Or not I don't wanna call it a bad video game point. Let's just call it a telltale game, and you call a telltale game whatever you wanna call a telltale game.
Well, but what I'm saying is like I think what's cool about it is it means that he doesn't actually have to be the best at anything he does. Because he knows how to acquire the equipment, or rather, not just equipment, the people too. He acquires the resources he needs to get out of situations, and I
Yeah.
think that's if we start recognizing that that's really his greatest strength in the show, it's gonna help make things easier to accept. Like when you watch an entire episode of the Mando where Mando doesn't do something cool at all, and he just gets caught by a spider monster and drained of his fluids, and we have to watch Grogu run off to go, save him and stuff like that.
He's a summoner is what he is. He's got the summon materia.
Yeah, he can summon people, he can summon items, whatever he needs.
His only limitation is Cara Dune, he can't summon her.
Not anymore.
I
Not
think
anymore.
I think she'll come back. I don't know if it's not going to be the same actress, but I will commit to Cara Dune coming back in some capacity.
I wouldn't
That
hold
that
my breath on that one.
that wouldn't be bad if she came back in some capacity, not necessarily with the same
As a
actress, but
Grievous.
as that was her on
It was
Mandalore.
her. It was her. Yeah.
It was her all along.
All right, now Ricky, I know I cut you off, and I want to go back to it because
Ricky was gonna talk about Mando's faith.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it.
I mean,
so
it's
talk about
no
it.
shocker if you watch this show or any of the shows that one of my favorite movies of all times is Signs, and
You hear
the
they're
premise.
remaking that? What do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I haven't heard it. And you're upsetting me by saying that.
Sorry, Ricky.
I mean, it won't have Mel Gibson in it, so that's a
Yeah,
good
well,
thing,
just
right?
they'll make their own with Cara Dune for Fox.
Yeah, Cara
Um,
Dune will be Mel Gibson's character.
But the movie's about a person who lost faith, finds it again, and this is kind of the inverse with that with Mando. I guess the same story with Bo-Katan, right? So you have these two people on opposite ends of the spectrum, and I like where the story's going so far in that it's not black and white for either of them. There's going to be some truth, you know, truth to some of the myths, and some of the myths are not going to be myths at all. And I'm curious to see where they draw those lines. Obviously, we're getting a mythosaur. That's a big shocker to Bo-Katan, but I kind of want to see what
Mythosaur.
they're going to pull under Mando's. What carpet they're going to pull under Mando to kind of shift his ideology as well.
I do like that you like that about Mando's faith, his unshakable faith. I see that. So in certain media, when someone has faith, like is in like Fright Night, the kid Brewster has faith and he can repel a vampire with the cross. That's a strength. But in Mandalore, in the Mandalorian, I see faith as a negative. I see it as a character flaw.
It's
But
his
but
crutch. It's his crutch.
Yeah.
and that's what makes Mando interesting to me,
Right.
like having that
Yeah.
crutch. And I kind of hope he doesn't lose the faith. I hope he kind of keeps it because it's a great juxtaposition with characters like Bo-Katan or Grief Karga or what's Poochie's name? Cara Dune. Cara Dune.
But you know what I think about that though is like I don't think he has to like lose the faith. I think he can do like what a lot of people who have faith is find a way to practice it that works for you,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's what this journey is, right? Is him learning about himself and about what his faith means to him, right? So like when Bo-Katan says, my father died defending Mandalore, and then he says, this is the way. And she looks at him like that just floored her because like that she hadn't heard it said that way in a long time, and it almost made her like remember what it was like to be a Mandalorian, right? Like, but
Mm.
I don't think that's going to ever make her find faith in the way, but I do think that at least she's going to find faith in Mando, and Mando has faith in his way. What like
Yeah.
I like I've constantly said the armor is the bad guy. I really do believe the armor is the bad guy of the show.
Still.
I still do. I
Still
I
do.
honestly
But
still do. I always will. But I think it doesn't have to be them coming to battle like over the dark saber. Like I think it can be a clash of ideology. I
I think
think
that's
that
what
one
it'll be,
right.
honestly, because the one, it seems like they're setting Mando down this path to rule or be the leader of Mandalore. He has a dark saber. He doesn't want that responsibility, but it's kind of being thrusted on him. But in order to unite all of Mandalore, I think he's going to come to realize that his way is not the only way or the best way, and it's about finding that middle ground to get everyone on the same page.
Well, yeah. So I see his faith, like I said, as a negative, as a downside, and I think that's what makes the character interesting. But what also makes characters interesting, just in general, is them overcoming the negative
Exactly.
aspects of them. So him
Yeah.
overcoming his faith, however that presents itself in the show, I think will be very interesting. And I think that's kind of what you said, Ricky, about how
I think he'll always
he'll
have
find
faith.
his own way.
He'll probably just
Yeah.
start taking off his helmet more.
Wait,
You
is
think
that what
so?
Ricky
Showing
said?
off that mustache. You
That
don't
that
have a
would
mustache like that, and don't show it
that'll be
off.
the big shift in his faith, and then we'll go into
Sure.
season 4 with
Or
maskless
he'll
Mando,
he'll have a Mandalorian helmet with just the mustache showing, like
like
it'll be completely
Dread.
covered. Yeah, like Dread.
Am
Yeah,
I
exactly.
side note, am I the only one that wanted to see every piece of armor come off except the helmet when he got in the bath?
I figured it stayed. They made it a point to say he can seal it up.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
did. Yeah, and that's what made like going to the planet and needing a robot kind of stupid because you could seal your armor. You could do that the whole time. Then
Yeah, just leave
uh,
why
the
did you just
kid in
do
the
that?
car
yeah,
and then just
I mean, he can, but if it gets pulled off, it's in trouble, right? Like that's the kind of the whole
yeah. If
like.
you get pulled off, you're in trouble. Yeah, I
Like I said
suppose.
before, I think this guy likes to spend money, on tools to help him get the job done, right?
He's
Like I
got to
think.
buy the right upgrades. He's buying the wrong upgrades is the
Well,
problem.
that's
And
because he made friends with Pelimato, and she clearly scams people. Like she
true.
sold him R5D4. All right, like that's just first mistake buying R5D4. That's no.
Got no motivator.
Yeah. What else?
So
What?
I actually have a question that Dennis or maybe Ricky might be able to answer, but why? Okay, so when Bo-Katan wields the dark saber, she does it like a fucking G. When Din wields the dark saber, he's like a clunky asshole. Like why does he wield it like
You,
that? And
I'm
why does it
so
get
happy. I'm so
it
happy
gets
you asked me
heavier
that.
with
you
like
could
with
probably
each
answer it
stroke
better
or
than I
something?
can.
Yeah, I'm so happy.
Is that a thing? Is that a thing?
That is a thing. That's
Okay.
it's actually a thing that so Sabine Wren is one of the main characters in Star Wars
In
Rebels,
yeah,
and
Rebels.
she's the character. Supposedly, she'll be showing up in this show as well at some point
She's a
soon.
Jedi though, right? Or is she
No,
a
she's not a
Mandalorian?
Jedi. She's a Mandalorian.
She's a Mandalorian.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, she ends up with the dark saber, and by the way, she gave it to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan didn't win it in combat. I I've gone off on
You
that
think
one
you
Well,
think
last.
Bo-Katan's just embellishing the
they
story?
touched on that though, didn't they?
Yeah,
Because
no,
that's why.
they yeah, we're bringing up old shit. Don't worry about that. I don't want to get on that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
for the brief time that Sabine Wren owned the dark saber, she had the luxury of having a master Jedi alongside with her, and she had people kind of teaching her that the dark saber is like its own special beast of lightsaber, that it actually is not just a sword that you wield. It is an energy that you have to let flow through you, similar to the force, right? And
Okay.
so if you're not feeling the flow of energy,
You
like,
got
or
bad juju.
you're not yeah, if you got the bad juju, or if you're not bothering to learn how to use this thing, it's super heavy to its wielder. And so
Mm,
I actually really like that you picked up on that, because that was that was made very clear when Bo-Katan picked that sucker up and wielded like a badass, because she knows how to use the dark
It's
saber,
like
right?
water bending. There's a
Din
flow to it.
just Din is that guy that buys tools or picks up tools and doesn't know how to use
he
them.
didn't buy the skills, and that's what pisses me off
Yeah.
because if I were playing the Mandalorian game, I would buy the appropriate skills before I bought the appropriate weapons. Like,
Yes,
just
fair
doesn't make
enough.
any sense.
But in theory, at some point, we might see that'll be another point of growth, right? Is him
Gotcha.
learning that like how to actually use this thing,
Okay,
because
because I had
it's
assumed
We
in
for.
Book of Boba Fett when he was fighting, I think it's John Favreau in the armor.
Mhm.
When he was
he
fighting
was
that
pretty bad
guy,
with it then too. Yeah,
yeah. So
Yeah.
Just based on that scene on the battle on Halo, I had just assumed that he just sucked at it. He didn't take the stats. You know, you got to
yeah.
take the +1. He took a -4 to
It's
using it,
it's
Well,
be,
but
yeah.
back
It's
to the
because no
faith
one's
part of it. I don't. If I recall correctly, he doesn't even. He didn't even know what it was when he got it.
well, because the armorer is a shady bitch who's
Yeah.
kept a lot of the
Like,
history of the Mandalorian people away from her people, right? She knows all the
but yeah,
stuff
he doesn't. He didn't know
because
what it was, but he
she
has
even
no
knew Bo-Katan.
inclination.
She knew
she's a
Bo-Katan.
freaking David
Yeah.
Koresh who created a goddamn religion only 10 years ago and just started like spouting all her lies and stuff, and
Yeah,
withholding truths. But every time Din Djarin comes back to her and he's like, "Hey, I met another Mandalorian and they told me this." She's like, "Yeah, I know about that."
yeah,
That's
yeah.
literally what
Bo-Katan's wrong. Bo-Katan's an
she
idiot.
does that every time. I hate her. I mean, I love her and I hate her at the same time. She's
I
evil.
hated the way, like, if we want to go back real quick to talk about episode 1, I hated the way she ran at the lizard monster. Like, and you're all like, "Oh man, she's gonna do something
With the
sick."
hammer and the
Hammer and an
forceps,
axe or
yeah,
something or whatever.
forceps,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
all like,
like
"Oh, she's gonna go, she's gonna do it," and then
mm,
whack, and I'm all like, "This is
she
the
just
dumbest
whatever.
thing
It's
ever."
fine. It's fine. It's okay. We can heal from that wound.
Okay,
Um,
but some people say that the dark saber is stronger than lightsabers. Like, what's the metric that they use? Like, what? How,
Mm,
I mean, it was a lightsaber created by the first Mandalorian to ever become a Jedi. Like it was just a special one. I don't
it
remember
has a
the.
kyber crystal.
yeah.
I don't know that it has.
It
Is
does.
it a kyber crystal? Is it
Yeah. I think
specifically?
that's what makes it a lightsaber.
Well, it's not. It's the dark saber.
Well,
Well, it's
I
a
forget.
yes.
So it doesn't. It has the absence of a
It's
kyber
not called a
crystal.
lightsaber.
It
It's
has a
not.
kyber
It
crystal.
actually makes different sounds than a lightsaber too.
It does.
I'm pretty sure if you buy one at Disneyland, you can take out the kyber crystal.
That's interesting.
Anyways, we'll
Well,
do a
I
whole
hate
episode
kyber
on the dark
crystals.
side.
I hate it all now.
But the point is, it acts funny. It's
It
Mhm.
acts funny.
it's got a
It's
personality,
got
kind of.
weight to it. Like that's
Yeah,
already different
Yeah.
than a lightsaber.
yeah. If you don't bother to take the time to read the instruction manual, it's not going to help you out. That's basically how that thing works.
Fair enough.
And he's never bothered to, right? He just sees it as, well, everybody says it's a good tool.
Yeah,
I'm just going to
he doesn't
swing it
bother,
around.
and he hasn't seeked it
So,
out. Like he's not.
so he went to Reddit to spec out his gear, and everyone's talking about how the dark saber's the gear to have, but he doesn't know how to use it yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's the best example or the best summary you're going to get of that.
Yeah, because it's a video game. Because the show's a freaking video game.
And that's okay. That's okay.
No, yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's okay because I like video games.
You know who's another
just
character in that video game that we haven't really talked about?
who dat?
Grogu.
Oh man,
That's a good ass puppet.
I was hoping we would never get to Grogu.
Really?
Grogu
Kinda.
was pretty good in this episode.
I
The
freaking
flips
love
are
Grogu in
weird.
this
The
episode.
flips I'll give you are weird.
Yeah, that's my
The
my
force
number one-
flips.
There's some Yoda ass flips in there.
once episode 2 came out, Attack of the Clones, I hated seeing Yoda flip around like a weasel on crack.
But here's
And
the thing.
seeing Grogu does that brings up the memories of how I felt. Like I've long since accepted Attack of the Clones and accepted
Great
that
movie.
things
That's
happen.
weird. For me, this is like the Bunta Eve thing. Like, if you can swallow the pill of Bunta Eve the first time around, then
Sure.
referencing it again is like, okay, well, there's at least there's a consistency in the canon. You know what I mean? Like, so
Sure.
for me, that like we know that he studied under Luke for a while, and Luke had to learn how to do flips and shit. So
Favreau had initially said 3 years, and then he backpedaled it. It's any time between 0 to 2 years, and I'm all like,
That's
"What the
enough
hell,
flip time.
Favreau?"
You know, fourth
I think
flip.
it's enough time for Luke to teach Grogu
Yeah.
how to use the Force to flip.
How long did Luke stay on Dagobah with Yoda? Like 2 weeks, and he
Yeah.
learned how to flip and float
Exactly.
and do shit.
Yeah.
So
So I didn't mind the flip, as weird as it looked. I was like, okay, it's at least consistent with the fact
It's
that he's
consistent
little-
with the other puppet flips that we've seen in Star Wars.
Well, that was a CG flip. That was a CG flip.
Well, he just flips.
Oh,
yeah,
his flip was
regret.
real. He was on
Yeah.
wires and everything. I don't know.
was
I
it
could
really?
be wrong.
Oh, okay. I was gonna
I
say,
could be
wow,
wrong.
But
that's
his
unlike
little
Disney.
mannerisms and his act, the puppeteering of Grogu I felt was pretty good.
I
Puppeteering was
loved
pretty
him in
good.
this episode because, like, for 2 reasons. One, I thought it was cool that he had to fend for himself a little bit, which was he did all right. He did pretty good. But 2, as a wheelchair user, oh my God, was I jealous of that thing. All we'd ever do is seen his little cradle or whatever carriage
he
thing
drives it now.
float around, but he can full on hit max speed on that thing and just jam, dude. And then
Jetson's ass car.
he can go vertical with that thing. I was blown away. I was just so excited to see him do that. But I also really liked that when he escaped, they finally justified having R5D4 there because clearly it's not Grogu that flew the ship. It's the astromech, and that's his actual job, right? Is to fly ships. So it had a legitimate excuse for why R5D4 was there, because he was pretty worthless the rest of the episode, right? So
Sure.
so he helped him get to bo-katan, and then bo-katan comes back, and she just does everything like a boss. Like, just you know what I also really liked about bo-katan when she came back is when she flipped on her little light on the helmet, and you get a few first person shots of the ruins in the mines, right? And you see them like all lit by her light. And that's a really cool, like, kind of like, I wouldn't say Chekhov's gun, but it's a cool, like, internal consistency that they set up in that part of the episode, so that later when she does it again, and then you see the freaking eye of the mythosaur, you're like, whoa, what the hell is that thing? Like,
Like very Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. Very Jurassic Park. I
But
felt
also
like they were.
also it's like when you push the options buttons by mistake, and then it turns your third person view to first person view,
Yeah,
and you're
it
like, "Oh
definitely did
shit."
that. It did that a few times, but I really liked, as weird as it was earlier in the scene, like I liked it, seeing it in the mythosaur section of it. So I was like, okay, I liked it. Like there's a visual consistency throughout the episode that helps like set things up for later. It teed
Yeah.
it up. So I really appreciated that. Um, I don't know. Is there anything we're missing from like the big likes or dislikes, or should we move on to the midichlorians, which I think we've already actually talked about a couple midichlorians.
We have brought
Um,
up a couple. I'm
yeah,
kinda curious, with, are you guys shipping Bo-Katan and Mando? Because 'Cause I'm hearing a lot of rumors about that. Like, just on Twitter, just people, like, guessing that,
I don't
um,
I don't think
I
I
they're trying
don't
to
think he
ship
ship
gets a
them.
Mando.
love interest until
Or
they're
is
ready to
everyone
end
gay
it.
now in the Star Wars
If I
universe? Are we
no,
all is
if
everyone
if Mando for me, if he's gonna hook up with anybody, it's gonna be the krill
Pelly?
farmer lady. No, the
Really?
krill
You think
farmer lady.
you think
Yeah,
the Krill Farmer? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's where he's gonna retire
I think that's a cool place to retire, right? I
because
thought that was a
that's
cool
somewhere
lady.
they're never gonna visit again in the extended universe.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, well, let's make this official. It's time for the midichlorian section of our show. It's the small stuff that has no impact on anything whatsoever, but for some reason, some people still think it's cool. I think, we mentioned a few of them. Like, I have my personal bias towards that hover chair. I know, several of us like the Boon to Eve reference, even though it had really nothing, it didn't meaningfully do anything except just remind you that it's Star Wars. Just like R5, right? That's really what,
Mhm.
what R5's purpose was.
Yeah.
But is there anything else? Like, I think there was like Frank, you had mentioned like the mythosaur and the bantha skull. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, so, I there's a lot of people online that have never heard of Mythosaur. They've always known that symbol on, Boba Fett's shoulder to be a bantha skull. So
A lot of
I
people got
started
fucked up
digging,
tattoos.
and so apparently, like in a 1980s Marvel comic back in the day, and this has long been wiped out several
uh,
times over again. They called it a bantha skull, and banthas I don't think even have tusks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
no, they
But
don't. They
I
don't.
think they called it a bantha skull in that
They got the
comic.
horns. Yeah, well, they have the side horns.
They have
So
side horns. They have, but
yeah,
they're
they have
like ram. They're like ram horns.
Yeah.
yeah, but they don't look anything like it.
No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no.
So yeah, but if you look up like bantha skull, like the internet will know that you're looking for the mythosaur skull. So
Oh,
it's really interesting to see like how much I want to say like and when you see people arguing for bantha skull, they're like, no, it was mentioned in such and such thing, which it wasn't. It's like some crazy Mandela effect thing
See,
that's out
that's
there.
I
funny.
had
It's really
always
interesting.
thought for a minute that the mythosaur was the thing Boba Fett rode in the holiday special.
That's what supposedly he tamed the mythosaur or whatever. Um I,
But it
I
looked
guess
it doesn't it has a very different face than what this
no,
thing is.
it looks like a brontosaurus or something
Yeah.
in the holiday special, but I think
Yeah,
it was supposed to be a mythosaur or
but
whatever.
we're not gonna consider the holiday special
Yeah,
canon
we don't,
in any
yeah,
way. Like,
I mean, he got
if
the
we can't have
gun,
Marvel
he got
comics,
the rifle from there.
we
yeah,
can't
but
have
it's
that
they never say it's Boba Fett's rifle. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
a
fair.
rifle that looks like it.
that
Uh,
disintegrates fools. But
yeah,
yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
just thought that was really interesting that
It
they did something like that.
yeah, the mythosaur lore is stuff that was uh, long established in expanded universe, and it
Yep.
seems to be a lot of the stuff that has that Dave Filoni and George Lucas kind of picked up on throughout the years in Clone Wars and other stuff. Like the
Yep.
Mythosaur doesn't get referenced a lot at all in Clone Wars, but like there's a lot of Mandalorian culture and stuff that gets set up in there. And they all do have that signet on them and stuff. So it was cool to finally get that little explanation, but not only get the explanation, but actually get the actual freaking beast down in there. Like that thing's huge, man, and it makes it funny that like Boba Fett settled for a Rancor. And I was like, your baby Rancor is lame compared to this thing. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be a huge,
It
huge beast.
it's another thing that just fucking throws more fucking mud in Boba Fett's eye. Like the fact that Boba Fett should be Mando, in my opinion, but he's not. Like Disney just wanted to just baby kid gloves Boba Fett,
They, the sins of
making
Timor
him
More, you know.
the respectful crime lord. Like Boba Fett was just so handled incorrectly, and I think this is just the cherry on top for that. I think.
But in fairness, though, like I think we're learning that we can like more than one Mandalorian, right? Like bo-katan is super cool too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
no,
so
we don't have to limit
I mean,
ourselves, but I mean,
Boba Fett
yeah.
had a good
Boba
30-year run.
I was gonna say Boba Fett's yeah, then that goes to my point. Like Boba Fett's like an OG. Like he should be
What's
respected, but he's not.
what's your take on
Like
Jango Fett though?
okay,
The oest
Jango
of
Fett,
G's.
he's not the OG. He shouldn't be the OG, but he is the OG in Star Wars canon, I guess, because he came before Boba Fett, so he should be the OOG.
But
But
really, the Mandalore
he's
came
not.
before them.
Yeah, now they're changing it. Yeah, so
Well,
like I don't know.
they're not changing it. It's just
No,
never been mentioned. It's never been mentioned in the live action stuff before.
yeah, but that's basically changing the lore because they're like it was the ultimate Mandalore or Mandalore Ultimate before they changed it. Who's the new big ass Mandalore? What do
Well,
they
it's
call
just
that guy?
it's a title. The ruler of the
Yeah,
Mandalorians is
No,
the
the
Mandalore.
well
Mandalore.
what do they call him? They
Oh,
call him something.
I forgot his name. Sorry, I'd have to look that up. But
Okay,
yeah,
but so originally in the original lore, he was called like the Mandalore Ultimate or something like that, or Ultima Mandalore or something. I don't remember. He was called something wacky in the that one. So I guess he's the OOOG, kind of
Yeah,
Mandalore. So I don't
yeah.
know. I'm just saying that Boba Fett was the one we saw in the 70s. Sorry, 80s was the one we saw in the 80s, and he should get more respect than he does. But a lot of the original trilogy characters are not very well respected in within the context of new Star Wars. So
yeah, because Mando's
it's
cooler.
yeah, no, because Mando is everything that Boba Fett should have been,
He was
and
called Mandalore the First, according to Wikipedia. But who
Mandalore the
knows?
First.
Who knows?
Yep.
Yeah, he was
I mean, I
also
get it, right?
not a not a
If they
humanoid.
had started, if the Mandalorian would have been a Boba Fett show out the gate, right? The first Star Wars show we're gonna do live action is a Boba Fett show.
Yep.
This would be so much baggage, and I think they
Yeah,
tried. They tried. There was going to be a movie.
but
What's his name?
the trick is, yeah, like Ricky said, there is baggage, and he was a bad guy in that story, right? Like yes, he was a bounty hunter, so he's just doing his job. But
Yeah.
like we get the opportunity to get a little bit more of a fresh start, and we learn like over the course of time that yes, he is a bounty hunter that kills a lot of people and stuff, but like he's also driven by like this really effed up sense of like religious duty, right? And so uh I think that, like you said, that's this really cool character flaw that makes him more
Did you
interesting than
watch
Boba Fett,
the
right?
Fantastic
Yep.
Four Fan Four Stick in theaters, Frank?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did.
Okay, well, that was my point. Like if
What? What do you mean that was your point?
What was your
I had a
point?
train of thought here because he was going to direct the Boba Fett movie, and then that movie sucked
Oh,
ass,
did he
and
pull
they
out?
literally pulled him out at Celebration.
So that was your
That's
point? Like
that's
I'm trying to
I didn't. I thought Frank didn't see the movie
That's funny. No,
in
I did
theaters.
unfortunately see it in the theaters, and I
hilarious.
enjoyed the first like 20 minutes of it, but yeah, it just went to shit. But what I wanted to say also, or so I just looked it up right now when you guys were talking, and Mandalore the Ultimate was made his first appearance in Tales of the Jedi: The Sith War. It was one of those Dark Horse comic books.
There's a cartoon which we never mentioned last week when we were recapping everything, but I included it in the slides or in the visuals. But Tales of the Jedi is a show on Disney Plus now too.
Yeah, but that's what wipes away. Well, I mean,
Oh,
The EU
it
was already wiped away
yeah,
anyway,
yeah, yeah. I got you.
Mandalore the First or whatever is the one that replaced
The Ultimate
Mandalore.
or whatever.
Yeah, it's basically them
Oh, that's weird because
bastardizing the
I
EU
found him
content.
in Legends, not canon. I found so if you go to Wikipedia, there's two sections now for all parts. So if you
Oh
look
yeah,
up the first Mandalorian and then go to Legends, that's where you find him, not under canon.
you find Ultimate.
You find the Great under canon.
So
Mandalore the
there's
Great is canon, and Mandalore the First is previous canon.
yeah, so there's different, Mandalore the First, I don't think okay, so if that's the case, Mandalore the Great and Mandalore the First. So Mandalore the First isn't the same as, um, Mandalore or, Ultimate Mandalore.
Well, that's fine. This
Yeah,
is a
So I don't
weird
yeah.
tangent, Frank.
Ultimate
no,
Mandalore
it's just
lives in
so
the
weird, like
618 universe, and Mandalore the Great lives in the 616.
Let's let's
I hate Marvel, it makes me hate Marvel
let's
now.
bring it back. Let's bring it back. One of the other things I wanted to mention before we kind of wrap this one up is like I briefly said it at the beginning of the episode, but like this episode was written by Jon Favreau, which we're used to, but it was actually a brand new director to The Mandalorian. We've never had Rachel Morrison, and so I looked her up. And actually, do you guys know what she's from?
She's,
Lay on me.
Mark Morrison and Tamora Morrison's, love child.
She was a cinematographer that was she did Fruitvale Station, Cake, Dope, Mudbound, and Black Panther. She did a bunch of cinematography stuff. Work like I'm gonna guess she got her in through Dope because that's actually directed by Rick Famuyiwa.
Dope's a great
Yeah,
movie.
And so
Dope's awesome, yeah.
but I thought it was cool. I thought like for this being the first known thing that I've seen this person direct, pretty good, pretty damn cool. Like it looked really awesome. Like I enjoyed how much I got to see of of this world versus all the exposition we got in the first episode, which I really liked that. I really liked that about that. And so I kind of appreciate, I hope that we get more episodes where we're seeing a lot of cool things rather than being told a lot of cool things, but
Speaking of showing and not telling, and on the same vein of as looking up cast members, or not cast members but crew members,
yeah.
I noticed that in addition to Ludwig Göransson, Joe Shirley is another composer that's working on the show, and that
Okay.
guy's pretty much he's basically an understudy to
Ludwig.
Göransson. Like he's worked together with like on Creed and Creed 2 and Black Panther and stuff like that. They
Yeah.
both worked on those together. And Joe Shirley's kind of starting to find his feet. Like he worked on like Creed 3 without Joransson and whatnot. So it's pretty cool to see. Um, Basically, his understudy, his like his little mini me,
Yeah.
kind
Well,
of doing his own thing a
it
little bit.
reminds me of the Dave Filoni method, right? Like that's what
Mhm.
Dave Filoni was to George Lucas. Is he was his little understudy. And so like
Yep.
these guys are basically creating a family of trusted individuals that can shepherd Star Wars into a new era. And so like
Mhm.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool that they're building that group. Rick Famuyiwa is now like an executive producer on this entire season of the show
Mhm.
too. So John Favreau and Dave Filoni brought that guy in and said, "Yo, you're part of this now. This is just part of your thing." So I think it's cool. Like let's
That dude
build it
left
out
the
more.
Flash movie for this.
Oh, really?
He was on board to direct the Flash before
I'm
Andy
gonna I'm
Machete.
gonna say that was a good call for him. It's a good call. Good call. Okay. I think we've talked a lot about this, and I think I kind of just want to know where it all falls. Like why don't we actually rate this thing before we get out of here?
All right.
So I want to hear I want to hear Frank's rating first on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being Boba Fett and 10 being season 1 of
T-
Mandalorian.
10 being nothing because I don't love anything anymore.
Love season 1 of Mandalorian. Don't
10,
hate.
10 being an ideal that could never be reached by Disney.
You
I'd,
love
I'd
season
probably
1.
I'd probably give it probably 7, 7.5, something like that.
All
I think
right.
I'd give it.
Okay.
I think it was really competently done. It did a
Yeah.
lot of things that I liked where it showed and didn't tell. But there was also some moments that I just didn't enjoy, couldn't get into.
Okay.
And also like I feel having not watched the Clone Wars, that's kind of a detriment because some things I don't want to say it impeded my enjoyment of it, like with the dark saber and stuff like that. But I feel like I might have enjoyed it more had I watched the Clone Wars.
Gotta do your homework.
I I will
And that
agree, but I think that's the point, right? Is they want you to
and
go back and watch.
but also like got to do my homework. The way Ricky put it, it feels like homework
That's
at
why I
this
haven't watched
point.
it.
For
Which
the
I
for
mean,
the record, the heaviness aspect of the dark saber is not referenced in Clone Wars. That's in Star Wars Rebels, which is
oh, okay,
it's like kind of like the
that's the sequel to the Clone
sequel
Wars.
series to the Clone Wars. Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean,
yeah.
with all the stuff, and then the fact that the EU's wiped away, that leaves just a bitter taste in my mouth. So everything's kind of diminished
Fair
in
enough.
the Star Wars universe.
Fair enough. That was a long way of saying it was good enough.
It was good enough. I
Yeah.
might watch the third episode, I think is what I'm getting at.
All right. That's cool. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Ricky. What do you rank this one as? You got a cranky face on you.
I
Did you actually like this episode
I
less than
don't
last
think
week's?
I liked it as much as last week's. There was a
Whoa. Snap.
Really?
you open up a fresh can of peanut butter type of feeling about last week. It's nice and smooth and perfect.
Oh no, there was nothing perfect about last week
Wait,
at
And
what?
all.
Last
You
I don't
week
did
want
an
to
I
say
was
entire
perfect,
hour episode about that. But you did say perfect. So when you say you don't
but
want to say
wait,
perfect,
which one's the peanut butter episode?
the first one.
The first one's the
no,
peanut butter?
This
no.
one is the second scoop, which is still great. Don't get me wrong; it's still a good scoop of PB, but it's not.
Oh
And I
man.
think had we not licked the knife in Tatooine at the beginning of this episode, this one might have been a better one. But I think that weird break with it just really was weird. So with that being said, I'll give it a 6.8.
Wow.
It
6.8.
Okay.
can only go up from here.
That's lower
Okay.
than
Well,
me.
I think everyone knows where I sit on this one. It did go up for me. For me, I had so much love for this episode. I just got like I felt a lot of moments because like there was a lot of quiet and I got to just see and experience a lot of what I love about Star Wars and what I love about the Mandalorian specifically. For me, if last week was a 7 or a 7.5, this one's at least an 8. At least an 8. Um,
Solid 8.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a solid 8. Like I love this episode so much more. Uh, I
I think we'll
will
get there next
only.
week.
What's that?
I think we'll get to an 8 next week.
This was at least an 8 for me. It could be a little higher. But I just know that coming off of all of my complaints last week, how I finally ended by saying I'm gonna give John Favreau the slack that he deserves, right?
Yeah.
Because if he's got to do a whole episode of setup, which Ricky calls the first bite of peanut butter, um, I would say that if that
The
setup
setup for
is
the
paid,
sandwich.
if the setup is paid off, then it's okay that we had to endure that stuff. It
If
doesn't
we're if
make
we're
the setup.
using Ricky's analogy, like the first episode was like using your last $3 to go to the store and buy the jar of peanut butter and then taking it home. You have to walk home because the car broke down. And then this episode was actually getting to open up and enjoy the peanut butter a little bit. A little bit.
A little bit. It's fine. Yeah. But
Skippy to
you
go.
haven't fully engorged on the whole jar,
Yeah,
right? Like you haven't.
you forgot
We
the
haven't
bread is
bitten
what
in the
happened.
peanut butter and jelly sandwich that is
No,
the
you have
mango.
no, you don't need the sandwich. You just need the peanut butter for right now.
No, you
We'll
need
get
sandwich.
more. Okay, this has been a blast. I've had fun doing this with all of you guys. You guys are ridiculous. I'm I don't know how much of this I'm gonna edit or how much I'm just gonna keep, but all I know is we got another show to go do, and we have way more other arguments to have about this for forever and ever, and that's not gonna be all contained in this one episode. So for anybody who is curious, you might want to go on our YouTube and find that soapbox. Whenever it comes out, open to the public, or if you want to hit up patreon.com/genxmedia to check it out. But in the meantime, I want to say thank you to Frank and Ricky for doing this show with us. This was really cool. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. If you had fun, Frank, why don't you tell them what they can do?
They can get The Force Unleashed on the PS3. That game is amazing. And if you had fun with Mandalorian, You'll have fun with that. You can spend your resources
Mm.
well and spend them better. But if you can't afford it or don't have a PS3, just smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe and leave messages in the video's comment section because it really helps the algorithm.
It does. Thank you so much, Frank.
Yeah.
And as always, you can find me on DenX Media, and you can find Ricky on Twitter at RRRickman. Sorry, RRickman9.
R Rickman 9. Yep.
RRickman9. Frank would prefer to not be found, so leave
Don't
him
find
alone,
me. Don't
people.
look for me.
Leave him alone. And with that, you have listened, and we
have spoken.
spoken.